This is the ModPod, brought to you by Modality, helping businesses optimize their Microsoft technologies everywhere.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the ModPod. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon.
Today we have Tom Arburthnot, who is Principal Solution Architect, and Tom Morgan, Product Innovation Architect. And I really need to have a chat with somebody who arranges these guests to make sure we don't end up with a Tom and a Tom. And today we are going to talk about PowerPlatform and the hype that surrounds it. We're going to talk about daily active usage statistics and does it really mean that you're collaborating? And we're going to work out how to point out to your boss that they're not doing it right. Let's crack on.
Okay, so first topic is about teams and daily active users. So we're seeing lots of stats around huge daily active user numbers, and I'm seeing some customers say we're done with Teams, everybody's using it. And my challenge there is there's so much to Teams, how can you possibly be done and everybody's using it? I'm sure everybody's using it for online meetings, but are they using all the collaborative functionality? Are they using apps? Are they using bots? Are they using co-editing? Like, do they really get the cultural paradigm shift of working together in collaborative spaces? Or are they somewhere on the spectrum between just joining meetings all the way through to I live in Teams? What do you guys think? What are you seeing?
I'm just quite impressed by the statement, I'm done with Teams.
Like in the context of, I'm saying,
yeah,
you're done with the training,
you need, so obviously Modality have training content and bots and user adoption reporting, and I do get a lot of pushback on, like, everybody's using Teams, you don't need to talk about that. I'm like, well, yeah, but how are they using Teams?
Do we know what makes that number, like daily active user? Is it I log in, that's it, I check one for today, or is it like you have to do something?
Microsoft's number, so the numbers that Microsoft touts about are some deliberate action. So they're not auto booting, like logging in. They are, you've done a click base, as little as that, like, but some deliberate action, so that they say they're defendable against, like, obviously everybody has Office installed, it boots up, it logs in. It's not that, it's some deliberate action. But yes, it could be as little as a thumbs upping a chat message,
sending a message. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I think the challenge, like the problem is, it's sort of a vanity stat, isn't it? It's for IT to pat themselves on the back, or adoption to be like, look how many people we've got. But if you don't break it down a little bit to be like, well, if you're no better than as it was in email and you're just using Teams as like a replacement like for an email, what's the point? Like, you're not getting any of the benefit, right? And I think people do stop there, don't they? They're like, they're sort of, we've got it up to like 90% of the company uses Teams, fine, like let's stop, we're done.
Yeah, IT don't usually have time to look for more things to do as well. So like that's part of it, is there's so much to do that going to find extra things to do, and then that is unfortunately how it's considered a lot, I think, is extra things to do.
Do you think the minimal amount of action that you have to do to qualify as a bit of daily active use is understood by management, or do you think they look at their portals and just go, oh yeah, cool? Or do you think?
I don't think they look at their portals for a start. I don't think it depends what you're calling management, but I don't think most people above service owner would have any idea of what proportion of Office 365 is used by who. I think user adoption teams or change teams might, but I don't think senior IT get measured by adoption. They get measured by noise and cost, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the closest you're probably going to get is ROI, but they'll just take those numbers to be like, look how many people, it was obviously worth it, which sort of hides that picture, as I was saying. Like nobody's measuring how many actual, like a collaboration score, And I don't know how you do that. Do you do that just by measuring the things inside Teams, so like meetings, collaborative chats, in team chats, or do you do it by measuring the decline of other things like email? I don't know.
Yeah, Microsoft have got the newish, it's not new anymore, the productivity score, where they're trying to align a score to your users are making the most of SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer, Teams. So they're starting to push in that direction. What do you see on the ACM side, Pete? Because you're closer to that. Like, you must talk to more people who want to understand those numbers and change them.
We do, and I think there's a massive lack of understanding, and you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, one of the major things we see is where people have literally taken Skype for Business, pushed that into Teams, therefore they're all chatting together on large group chats, but that's not a collaboration piece. So there is, I think, a piece of work right at the front of that sort of ACM conversation to say, do you really understand what this product is designed to do in its entirety? Because most people see it and they've had it thrown out at them, particularly in the last sort of 14 months, 15 months, and they're chatting and they're doing meetings on it. I think the level of understanding outside of that arena is probably nowhere near as strong as it should be.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame because that's missing so much of the business value of genuinely collaborating, like getting away from emailing Word docs around and getting away from disparate threads and knowledge being stuck in email chains. And when people leave and people join projects, they've got no idea what the history was. You don't get that from just adopting private chat. I think private chat is relatively easy. Everybody understands what iMessage is, what WhatsApp is, what Signal is, and they can take that to their workplace and be like, oh, chat, I get it. But being diligent about channels and topics and then getting things like using Planner in Teams and structuring projects and stuff, I think that's where you start to unlock huge value. But that's a bigger jump for a lot of users to make.
Yeah,
I
mean,
yeah.
Go on, Tom.
I was going to say it's like if you're looking at the numbers, those headline numbers and thinking you're at the end of your journey, actually what it means is you're ready to begin actually the real journey. Like, you've got everyone in the right place, but they're not doing it. They're doing the old things.
Yes, they have access to the platform.
Yeah,
they're using the platform.
Yeah. And now you need to start the journey of actually changing. But it's the hearts and minds thing, isn't it? It's the how people work rather than where they work.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've done and we're starting to do much more often is that regardless of what we've been told has been achieved from a project perspective, is we're just doing a sort of a level set at the beginning and going, well, let's just talk it through and make sure that we've got all the use cases and the sort of stories and the way you operate right, and do this and we've got that, and it hooks into OneNote, and we're going to bring in the the OneDrive and the SharePoint piece here, and this is how it's. And by the time you actually start laying all of those components out, it's almost guaranteed that there will be people in the room going, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? There's a lot of potential. And I think that's one of the challenges as well, is there's so much. I don't think you can even consider training or adoption change management, or you want to call it, like one and done, because there's too much. It's got to be a continuous muscle as part of IT, if it lands in IT now. The technology is evolving, the platforms are evolving, the business is evolving. There's constant training to do. You don't become a doctor and then stop learning because things change, right? But it's the same for knowledge workers. Like, things don't stay static, they change. Part of being a productive knowledge worker with the company, I think, is understanding how to maximize bond tooling.
Yeah, and that's part of obviously we've been having a conversations about ACM as a service anyway, is because that I'm done with Teams looks like it's basically turning itself into a never-ending story. Good film, actually. Haven't seen it for ages, but and as you said, Thomas, that you get into the right place to move on to the next bit. When you're happy with the collaboration piece, then you've got the apps to come afterwards, and by the time you've got that in place, you've then probably got something else that's come out from Microsoft that's going to feed into it. I mean, obviously Viva's sort of hanging around, so there's yet another thing. So the whole training people once and letting them go has to be a thing of the past. It can't be a one-stop shop.
Do you think it should be built into, like, the continuous professional development stuff that companies do, because that's all about, like, you know, you refresh your management skills, you refresh your people skills, you refresh like the technology you work in. Should it just be part of that? Like, it's expected.
It definitely should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
There should be some kind of time aligned to it. It's not just, you don't learn this stuff just automatically. You know, businesses make time for, you know, corruption training, they make time for ISO training, they make time for any legal fire training, all that stuff, because it's legal, they'll make time for it. I think one of the challenges with technology training is it's pretty easy to go and buy Pluralsight or CBT Nuggets or whatever else and say, here's some videos. But I think it only comes to life for a lot of people if you talk around a business problem they have. You know, we're doing a project, let's talk about how you can leverage the 17 different tools in Office 365, like which ones would work for you best. Like, a course on OneDrive is pretty dry, I think, but like knowing that you're working with internal, external people, and you can use OneDrive to collaborate on the same document, that brings it to life. So I think that's one of the challenges.
So actually, on that set of CPD, one of the things, obviously, that you said we do, you know, annually is all based around risk, and is risk actually potentially not a justifiable driver to say, actually, you should know how to drive all this stuff properly to protect the company?
Yeah, it's a good angle, actually. Yeah, if you share wrong, if you share the wrong data with the wrong people,
it comes back to it, doesn't it? It's like you can put all the security in the world in place, and if somebody does something stupid, you know, you're still wide open anyway.
Yeah, and there's an assumption that people will pick that up by osmosis, but yeah, it's as silly as saying, like, all the other stuff you get trained on annually, you'll pick up by osmosis. Like, you won't, you know, you might get some of it, like some of it's common sense and you can figure some of it out. Is that the best way to do it? Probably not, you know.
Yeah. Also, people are at different places with the technology, and people come and leave the organization. So again, doing this like one time, like we really did a big push on Teams and all this training in February. It's like, well, great, but 10% of your workflows have probably changed now. Like, you need to redo that, and the people that didn't care then have got different roles and do care now. So it's definitely not a one-time thing.
Yeah. So obviously we've got tools that allow us to look deeper into the usage. If you're using the Microsoft tools, you can't dive down to that sort of level, I don't think.
Not quite. Like, Microsoft has some good stuff. So if you're doing nothing, like, there's plenty of value in the Microsoft tools, the Power BI usage tools. Our difference is, particularly for Teams, we literally go in and look at every single channel, every single message, @mention replies, who's editing files. So we can do things like, I can tell Pete's being @mentioned in Teams and he's not replying. Like, and then furthermore, we can kind of send a message, say, hey, little nudge, your colleagues are trying to collaborate with you and you're breaking it because you're not replying. Because what happens is they'll then fall back to private chat or email or phone you, and the knowledge is lost. So yeah, one of our benefits is getting into the weeds on exactly who's using the tool, who's collaborating with who's replying, who's a member of a team versus active in the team. Because you have these really big teams by membership, but you'll find that 10% of people are engaged with each other on those teams, for example.
Yeah. So the message really back to businesses is, don't believe your daily active usage, do some digging.
Yeah, and I guess see the value in getting the most out of, you're paying your people a lot of money. Like, why not sharpen the saw a little bit? You pay for the tools, you pay for the people. The last 10% to get the most out of it is spending some time ensuring they know how to use the tools, and that's often the first thing that gets not paid for.
Yeah, and the risk profile of them not understanding what they're doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. Thank you very much. That was good. Not sure we talked much about daily active usage, but we got there in the end. So
that's where we started.
Brilliant. Yeah. Right. Let's hit topic number 2. Right. So my topic for today, following on from the active usage, is how do you point out to your boss or a senior member of leadership that they're not using the tools right? that they're doing it wrong.
Easy, Pete,
So,
right? There must be
Specifically
some
to teams, right? Yeah.
well, yeah, not just running the business. I mean, that would be slightly precocious, wouldn't it? It's like
using the technology in a way not aligned to how the business has chosen to use the technology, I guess, would be the.
yes. I mean, a simple example, and Tom, you'll remember this one, but we had quite a few conversations about not sending out leadership emails and sort of moving it all onto Yammer, so that historical record was there, and we should be using that. And that, I think, actually took some fairly sort of direct conversations to say, right, you can't do it. But where you get into the more sort of day-to-day stuff, we have people sort of bouncing emails around, we have people sending out attachments occasionally, etc. How do you address that?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like, because you don't want to look badly in their eyes or be the person that appears to be moaning, but if your philosophy is to use Teams in a proper collaborative way, but then someone important keeps attaching emails about the project with file attachments, not links, or they keep having the project conversations in private chat because they can't really get their head around private chat versus channel chat. How do you have that conversation?
Just to be a devil's advocate for a minute, like on the side of like these people, why is that happening? Is it because, I'm just wondering, do they work in a slightly different way that is less aligned to some of the collaborative things that other people do? Is that a fair assumption or not?
I think it probably comes in several answers on that one, because if we take a scenario, and this isn't a dig at our sales team, but it's something that quite often happens with, within there, is a client will email across some information, maybe about a piece of work that they want to do. The default reaction is then to forward that onto the appropriate team. And so there's an element in there of, it's actually more work for me to take that information out of the email and send it on via, put it into Teams or whatever it is. So I think there's that angle, or whether or not, if somebody is just
on that, that's a question of, do they know what the right thing to do is, but they're choosing not to do it because they think it's quicker, easier, better, or do they not know? And I think a lot of the things I see are not knowing, as opposed to kind of maliciously ignoring the system. Like that sales one.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. No. I think sometimes they try and run away, like they try it and then they run away, right? So I see execs being added to a lot of teams because everybody wants exec sponsorship on their project and their thing, right? So execs end up with a huge membership, and then it's complete noise all the time because they're getting everything. And so some of that is training to understand how you can dial down the notifications and just
how many
go to where you're being at mentioned.
To do the training,
but
that's the challenge.
You don't, like, you try it, you get overwhelmed.
More training in some ways because their job role means they're across a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, and they're in and out all the time. They're like quite parachuting, but you know what I mean? Like they're making decisions, like they're not on the lifetime of the project.
So maybe it's specific for that role. Like if you're going to be over a lot of different things. You're not going to read every single message in the context of Teams. You're not going to receive every single message. How do you deal with that? How do you know what to ignore as well?
Which is interesting because, like, in some ways, you want the technology to coalesce around how work gets done, right? So maybe you want to be able to say, like, these are our exec people and I can mention them anywhere. They don't have to be in the team, and then they get a special curated view that they can go and see it and they can drop it. Like, the stuff happens in the background. They don't need to manage their team membership.
No, but I mean, the tool can almost do that now if you use it in a certain way. If you accept that membership is not the need to be engaged, and then you use your activity feed and you only look at things where you're at mentioned, but you have to know how to do that. And I don't think, like, most orgs would train their managers or their senior leadership to work differently with the tool than their junior. Like, Teams is super easy if you're involved in one project and there's one team. It's the best tool in the world. Everything lives there. I basically don't look at email. I'm internal facing and I've got one project. When you're customer facing, you're business facing, you're involved in 20 projects, it becomes more of a management task to deal with how you spend your time, and you don't just end up running from chat to chat to chat.
Yeah, because you and I had a conversation about this, God blimey, probably a couple of years ago, and I think we ended up concluding that Teams was like a long corridor with loads of doors and office spaces off the side of it, and you can either choose to walk down the corridor and look in all the various doors and see what's going on, or you walk up and down the corridor, and then when somebody opens the door and pokes their head out and goes, "Oi, Pete,"
Yeah,
you then get involved.
We almost got to a perfect explanation of Teams around rooms and private offices that are locked and offices with open doors, and we were almost there. Then you got shared channels and private channels, and it kind of all.
I think it's hard for anyone who works at the edges of the company, though, right? Where more than a minority of your communication is with people outside the org, because for the try as much as you like, however much of a Teams diehard advocate you are, not every organization is going to be using Teams, and not all of your communications are in shared and federated channels.
That's 100% the hardest scenario when you're customer facing. So all your customer comms, apart from the more hardcore customers who are Teams who are on shared channels or shared teams, it's going to be email. That's still the common denominator for 90% of scenarios. So you have to live there, and you have to live on Teams, and then people shout at you because you start using email internally, but you're using email externally. It is tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to come back to the point of how do you actually tell your boss, I think if it's something that's affecting you directly, I would hope that most people would be able to turn to their boss and go, "Actually, can you just send it to me in Teams, because I really don't deal with email anymore." But that, I reckon, is probably more of a confidence thing. And I know that depending on where you are in a corporate structure, almost effectively challenging somebody above you to change the way they work is quite daunting, right?
Do you feel like orgs should actively say, part of we're changing our culture here to move to a more collaborative way of working? Part of that is you are empowered to remind your peers of the agreed processes. Like, you will not be shouted at for saying, "Don't forget, team, this is private chat. We should I feel like people don't want to be the naggy person, so I feel like you have to empower them and say, it's okay, but that's actually good. We need people to do that."
I think so. I think it's got to, otherwise it's never going to change, is it?
Do you think the technology should do that more? Like, the clients should be like, "Hey, you're sending another internal email. Like, everyone else is talking on Teams."
Yeah, so same tough problem, isn't it? Where did Microsoft set the rules? Like, if an org wants to use email and not Teams, why would the Outlook client bug them to use Teams? So I think it's hard to find generic rules. Although saying hi in Teams private chat could be a generic rule that you could tooltip for.
It just doesn't send. Like, you need to have more.
Yeah. That's not a detailed enough message. Go away.
Yeah, but it's like the old voicemail message, isn't it? "Hi, can you call me back?" Or you could actually just tell me what it is that you wanted to talk about.
Hi in chat kills me.
Right. Yeah. And it's the one where you get it, and then 5 minutes later you get the response.
Yeah, that's it. They've gone by the time you reply.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think people should be open to be able to just go, "Actually, no, that's not right." And if your boss takes the hump at that, then maybe they actually are not buying into it because they don't get it.
So there you go. Everybody in Pete's team, feel free to point out if you don't think Pete is using the team.
Oh no, mate! They point out everything I do wrong. It's fine. That's not true. That's not true, really. Cool. Okay. Lovely. Should we jump on to the third and final, the Power Platform topic?
Yeah.
So for my topic, I wanted to talk about the Power Platform. Microsoft make lots of noise, have been making lots of noise about the Power Platform, are solving all sorts of problems. And I'm kind of really curious to see how that's landing with the people you're talking to and with kind of organizations that you're interacting with. It's definitely sort of becoming a route by which Microsoft are trying to keep people inside the the Microsoft ecosystem, and we can kind of talk through why they're doing that and whether it's effective. But yeah, just wondering how that sort of story is landing like with customers.
Well, I think from one angle, customers aren't coming to us hugely with questions around sort of Power Platform, because if you actually go onto the Power Platform pages, one of the consistent themes across it is we're making it easy enough for you guys to do yourself. And so people are taking that route and having a go. So I don't think there's a huge amount, apart from when people are getting really stuck.
But you do see them using it, like they are buying into this. Yeah, that's cool.
I think slowly.
Yeah.
There are certainly some organizations.
I think the people I'm seeing doing it are like the person that would have done the Excel macros in the office. Like, I don't think it's everybody, but the person that would have done Excel macros and everybody else would have been like, wow, you're amazing, you can make Excel dance. They're now like, look, I can make this business workflow with bots, because they get their heads tech enough to make something happen, but business enough to know what to make happen. I think Microsoft overstate how easy it is. I mean, they make it sound like anybody could do some of this stuff, and I don't think that's I think anybody could learn it, obviously, but I think just you've got half an hour to solve a business problem, Power Platform can solve it. I think you end up with pockets within the org, hopefully business people who can help other people solve their problem with that kind of platform.
I think one of the things that concerns me is you're absolutely right, and to be honest, I'm still impressed by people who can make Excel dance, because I can't. I can concatenate, although I think that's been removed now, isn't it? But the thing that really sort of worries me is if you think back to the days of Lotus Notes, when they were quite prevalent, you had the ability to create your own apps within there, and by encouraging everybody to be able to do their own problem solving, it's kind of good in one way, but in the other way, you're ending up with lots of different little solutions, which, as you say, if somebody then leaves and moves on, is it documented? Is it written down? Have you got the
I think IT are quite worried by that part of it. So they're going to end up like with these really business critical things that nobody actually understands, that somehow they're going to end up holding the can for.
Yeah, the person who built it leaves, and nobody knows really which account it's running under, how it hangs together, if it's what
secure, is it? And all these things. So I think we see that definitely. What I don't see, which I thought I would see, is resistance from developers and development. I thought we'd see a bit more of that in terms of like, you're taking my jobs away. I think mostly it's because as Tom, to your point, like it can solve some niche, not even niche, but like very common templated scenarios, but it's got such a cliff of learning that if what you want to do matches up perfectly with a template that you can go with, or the connectors neatly snap together, then great. That's probably something that your dev team didn't want to do anyway, because it's pretty boring and they do the same thing like that every single day. It's just it's crud, right? It's the create, read, update, delete cycle of like, it's just another UI on a bit of data. Actually, they'd much rather be concentrating on the interesting stuff. Anything above that, it's such a steep learning curve that it has to go back to sort of a development team.
So are we looking at a position with this Power Platform where effectively we're going to shift everybody's skill set up one? So some of the basic stuff.
I think Microsoft would like to see there. Like I think Microsoft would like to see that happen. Will the knowledge worker of 10 years time be like have those skills innately? Maybe being a knowledge worker is being adept at working with data and manipulating data and being able to visualize data in different ways and using those tools in the way that like a really good knowledge worker today might be expected to be able to ingest data in Excel, turn it around and present it to the boss. Maybe, I think Microsoft would like to see us get to that place.
It does feel like you take Power BI as an example. It feels like they keep positioning that as like the new Excel to impress your boss. But and I think that's the kind of thing that someone who was really good at Excel before could probably get really good value out of really quickly. But I mean, if you look across the orgs I've worked with internally, externally, the level of Excel skill is 1 in 10, 1 in 5 who can actually use Excel like the way it's potentially intended to be, not not filling in cells, but like, so I'd be surprised if we get to more than that ratio of citizen developers. But I think it will still unlock tons of value, because the 1 in 10 person who can make Power Platform do clever stuff will be the go-to person. I just hope that businesses realize the value of that person and let them kind of roam the business helping solve problems for the other 9, rather than having them stuck in one place doing one thing. Like I can almost see the case for having a part of IT be Power Platform users running around the business that can talk enough business to not scare the business, and enough Power Platform / IT to help solve the problem, and meet somewhere in the middle.
I think we'll see more of that, but also I think we'll see more automation in that less technical Excel maneuvering that people do. Like there's a whole range of activities right now that involve ingesting data, changing the data, and outputting it again, and those are ripe for automation, and there's lots of challenges and discussions to be had about what that means for people's jobs and stuff, but I see that ramping up in the next 5 years as well.
But there's also the straightforward time saving piece. So our current utilization billing tools, you look at those and it spits it out in an Excel spreadsheet, and you've got to manipulate it to get to what you want. We now have it pointed, or the database is is basically just Power BI is pointing straight to the database on the tool. And so now it is a case of opening up a browser, and there, slap in front of me, is all the list of people, who's missing hours, who's been billable, what clients have been billable. It's just so laid out in such a fantastically easy thing. By the time I've downloaded and opened up and sort of got to grips with what I need to change on the Excel spreadsheet, I've got all the answers I needed anyway.
So I think
it's huge savings.
That's it. Like that will either manually, in the way you just described, like clever Power BI people going around automating these bits, taking away the manual manipulation. But also I think more and more Microsoft will lean into doing that automatically with AI and stuff. Hey, it looks like you always take the data that looks like this, do these things to it and output it. I could do that for you every time.
Would be if the AI ever got there, that would be amazing. Like I see you spend 3 hours.
It's a small step from the macros we have
every Wednesday.
It's a fairly small step from like the macros we have today, and but like I see that happening. But then what do you do with those people? That's the challenge. Like that's somebody's job then.
But that's always been the case though with people's jobs, isn't it? As technologies come in,
I mean,
they've gone on to
you free them up to do something more productive. Yes.
Yeah. Go back to the days of the photo stat. Somebody standing there turning a handle,
scribe it down, make a copy.
Right.
I would like to see though a roaming, like it's because it's hard to measure the business value, and they're not the cheapest people in the business, but like having a roaming team who got like particularly Power BI, like the amount of Excel manipulation. Most orgs run on Excel really when it comes down to it. Like the potential to take that from flat Excel files to real-time Power BI reporting is a huge chance.
A really good person to needle all that stuff out would be when you go through the ISO certification process stuff, or any certification process. It's a process of sitting down and figuring out the process, I'm using words, of your company, right? You go through like, how do you submit how do you do a tender? Like what's the process for rejecting this thing? What's the process for doing this? What's the process for doing that? If someone could sit alongside that, like, well, that's interesting, that seems very repetitive, you do that, do you? Okay. And because you need that whole understanding of how the business operates, and that's what's hard to get. I think you can get a great Power Platform, Power BI person. What do they do? Like where do you own them at? Like that's the problem. They have to talk to the people who understand how the business operates. But also,
you're right, ISO is the perfect opportunity because the process is supposed to be carefully documented and accurate, and they can be like, oh, you email this to this person, this decision, then they put it in Dynamics, then they put it in Teams, then they make a chart.
Yeah,
I could do all of that.
ISO is one of the few places as well where processes are challenged. So I know this from experience. Like if you're a low grade IT person sent in to make someone's life a little bit easier, you get told how it gets done. And in your head, you're like, well, that's silly. I could do it like this. No, we don't do it like that. We do it like this. It's always been like that because that's what Maureen said. You know, it's like,
right. So they've designed the process and they quite like the process and they don't quite
like
their 3 hours playing with Excel on a Wednesday afternoon. They don't really want you to take it away.
You
have to be at a level where you're empowered to help solve the process.
Yes, which actually comes up in ISO discussions because it's like we could change this or we have to change this, or there's much more openness to change, I think, when it comes through a big process like that. But
yeah, so I mean, one of the things in, I think, recent years was that data scientist was one of the most rapidly growing jobs.
Yeah.
So are we going to have potentially a little bit of shift and say, okay, there's data scientists, but also there's going to be some sort of automation scientist or whatever it is. Maybe that's something that needs to.
Yeah, it's like a process. It's a sort of process automator.
Yes.
I don't know. Power ISO. You heard it here first.
ISO.
It's a new standard.
It'll catch on.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much at time. But thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. I think most people who come on just enjoy having a natter for 45 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much, gents. That was actually episode 10. We're like double figures. This has been going for a while now. But
we get T-shirts or something for being guests at How It Works.
Don't know. Can we automate that?
Yeah. You go and find a T-shirt, then there you
go. So we will be back in 2 weeks' time, and thank you to Tom Arbuthnot, Principal Solution Architect, and Tom Morgan, Product Innovation Architect, and we will be back, as I said. Thanks very much.
This is the ModPod, brought to you by Modality, helping businesses optimize their Microsoft technologies everywhere.